Welcome to the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and I am on the mission to change the narrative of immigration, one immigrant story at a time. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and today I have Miss Rebecca here with me. She's going to be talking about her journey coming to the U.S. and also her career in HR and helping immigrants navigate the corporate world. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here today and being willing to share your story. How are you today?
Hi, Heidi. I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much again for being willing. I don't take it lightly when people are willing to share their immigration stories. So if you can introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you do, and then we can get started on life back home.
Absolutely happy to share my experience as an immigrant in this beautiful country that I now get to call home. So, a bit about me: Rebecca Vera Cox is my full government. and um, I'm an HR executive, career strategist, and the founder of a company called Ventura Group. In fact, we are currently rebranding from RJSS Integration. But a bit of backstory on that. What really started as a small initiative to coach immigrants or people moving to the U.S. Um, you know, evolved into a virtual talent placement agency, providing opportunities for people, living overseas in different markets to businesses here, small founder-led organizations who really didn't have the capital to maybe hire full time. So the business has evolved, and so has my experience over the years, and I continue to transform my service offerings in addition to helping immigrants navigate the complexities of the U.S. job market, moving to a new
Yes.
country. You can imagine how
Yeah.
unnerving that is, not having a guidebook per se and having to rely on intel from your own research or shared experiences by family members or colleagues. I thought it was a great way to accelerate integrating into a new country, a new culture, and a new job market. So, my services specifically for that area is focused on everything from resume review, career guidance, interview coaching, and the list goes on. Everything that you need to know,
Yeah.
the cultural nuances,
Oh my
depending on
gosh,
where
so
you're coming
important.
from. It's so important.
Yes.
But you know, prior to the U.S., again, bit about me. I was born in Georgetown, Guyana, and if you're not familiar with Guyana, it's a former British colony, and I'll tell you why I make a point to know that.
Mhm.
um, it's because it's the only country in South America that the official language is actually English.
Mm.
Though our local dialect is Creolese, um, we're an English speaking country. And I have to always say that because when I tell people that I'm from South America,
Did you speak Spanish?
they automatically assume that I speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And when I say no, I speak English, the response or the reaction is one of perplexity. It's, well, what do you mean? Well, then I go on to share that, well, I'm actually of Portuguese ancestry. So then they say, oh, you speak Portuguese? Well, not exactly. Um, but Guyana is very ethnically diverse.
Mhm.
It's a rich blend of people of African descent, East Indian descent, European and Chinese Amerindians, which are the native people. So there are different cultural influences. So our
Mm.
ethnic or tapestry, it's very rich cultural tapestry, very rich and just very vibrant and shaped by all these different um ethnicities and cultures. So I always like to give some color and context
Yeah.
as to where I'm from and how that influences how I see the world.
Yeah, I actually had a supervisor from, your country, and she was African descent. So, and then she explained the same thing that you said. She's like, "It's the only South American country that, they don't speak Spanish and things like that." So it was very interesting to, learn about the culture and things like that. Because before meeting her, I don't think I had heard of that country before or even, like, looked into it and things like that. So that was very interesting to learn.
Yes, like many, like many.
Yeah. So tell us about moving to the US. What events led you to move to the US?
Great question. My move to the US, I would say my response to that is a bit layered.
Mm,
Um, it's a series, I describe it best as a series of necessary pivots.
okay.
When I left Guyana, I initially moved to the Cayman Islands and I was, chasing an opportunity that I thought would, and it did, would really allow me to evolve professionally and personally. So I made my first journey outside of the shores of Guyana to the Cayman Islands. Gorgeous, island in the Caribbean that I often refer to as just a slice of paradise.
Yeah.
It really is. It's truly a gem. It's actually a British territory, so it's still ruled by the British or
Mhm.
sovereignty. Um, but it's a beautiful little island, and I had an opportunity there that I decided to jump on, and I made my journey out there. After living on island for a few years, I found love again. And I met my now husband and I remarried and we relocated to the US. We were both in the process of restarting our lives and, had the opportunity to really create something from scratch. So the
Aw.
book was not necessarily romanticized. Oh, I was chasing the American dream per se. Um, I didn't arrive with that dream, but I really did arrive with here. I came here with that sense of responsibility. I obviously creating a new family, and just it, it was part of the journey
Yeah,
that led me here.
for sure. And so would you say that if you had not met your husband, do you think you would be in the US? Or I don't know. I know that's kind of like a loaded question because we never know because, our choices lead us here. But did you ever like think about moving to the US before meeting your husband?
I did. So I have a lot of relatives here, and they're
Oh,
scattered. I have relatives, close relatives in Florida. I have relatives in New York. And I was very close growing up with one of my cousins. She lives in Florida, and they moved or migrated to the U.S. So I think we were, yeah, we were kids. She was 5 years old, I believe, but she
wow.
came back every summer. We spent summers together because her parents, brought her back to her home country. And I believe we were in the process of completing high school, and she was so adamant that I needed to move here. So much so that she was trying to get me into different colleges. I remember us writing her essays for FIU. She wanted me to attend FIU with her.
Aw.
I know it was so sweet. But, we were obviously out of touch with all of what it would take to really make that materialize. But
Yeah.
she wanted us to be close, and she thought it would be great if we attended college together. That didn't happen, you know, at the time, but that
Yeah.
was, to answer your question. Did I at any time dream? Yeah, absolutely. At that point in time in my life, when I didn't have any responsibilities, and it was something that I definitely thought about.
Yeah. Oh. Um, what state did you and your husband move to?
So my husband is a native New Yorker. But
Okay.
if you speak to him, he'll tell you that he's Caribbean, just that his father's
Yes.
St. Lucian descent. His mom was born in New York, Brooklyn, New York. So when I moved here, we both moved. I moved to New York, which was his home
Wow.
state. Yes.
Okay, so tell us about that from the Caribbean to New York.
I know. Well, before actually making the transition permanently here, I did visit
Mhm.
quite often. And I remember my first moment, like landing in New York City, I was completely taken aback by the tall buildings, the hustle and bustle and the grittiness of the city. It was
Yeah.
nothing that I could ever anticipate or imagine. It was something to be experienced. And
Mhm.
I was in complete awe of just, being in the city and looking at the infrastructure, and the culture. Um, it was an amazing experience. But moving there, obviously, I love New York. New York for the very fact that it has, four seasons.
Yes.
Unlike Florida, it's summer all year round. Um, but New York is it's just beautiful. It's one of the very few places that I think Alicia Keys said it best. It's the streets will inspire you, and they
Yeah.
certainly
Oh,
did.
yeah, for sure. I love that song.
Yep.
Um, what you mentioned a little bit about the culture. Can you remember like your first culture shock, whether it was when you visited or when you officially like moved permanently, like just like something that kind of like was like, whoa, that's different, than what I'm used to.
So I'll tell you my first culture shock in New York, coming from a little island in the Caribbean Sea, 21 square miles, where the people are just so warm and hospitable. I definitely got my first, the people in New York, they're a bit more assertive, a bit, I
Mm-hmm.
say, maybe an
Mm-hmm. Yes,
understatement.
they are.
My husband will describe that, that's how New Yorkers speak. We move quickly, speak quickly. But my first culture shock, I think, was the way that I was spoken to in the subway. And I
Mm,
had another encounter where, the level of assertiveness, maybe, you know, me putting it politely, it was a bit of a culture shock for me.
yeah.
Um, in the corporate world, I will say the communication was a culture shock for me. Not the language itself, but the context, um, tone, the way that you express yourself. Even though I speak English, my dialect is a bit different, and some of the terms that I use are different. My
Mm-hmm.
pronunciation is a bit different,
Mm-hmm.
and my communication style is just a bit more different. And when I say different, it tends to be a bit more formal. Um, it's more relational and really rooted in respect. And that shows up in the way that I speak to others, in the way
Yeah.
that I write as well. Whether that's me saying, something like starting an email, dear sir or madam. It was polite, but it was a standard way of writing where I came from.
Yeah.
So that I quickly realized that my communication structure was what was familiar suddenly appeared antiquated and unnecessarily formal. So that in the corporate setting, that was a huge culture shock for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And then now
Mm.
using that to be able to teach, other immigrants and stuff. So I can see that how that like was a full circle moment.
Absolutely.
So tell us about visiting back home after, you had your move. So you're living in New York City and then I mean, I don't know how long it took to be able to visit because I know each immigrant has their own experience. So some people it takes years, some people are able to visit back after months. So tell us about the first time visiting back home.
So because I left, to the Cayman Islands, I went back home within maybe the first few months of
Mhm.
leaving.
Yeah.
And, everything just seemed so different. The infrastructure seemed different. Suddenly I couldn't drive. in my home country anymore. Um, but after moving to the US, I believe I went back after the first year of moving here. And when you go back home, there's just this.
Hi, Heidi here. Thank you so much for listening and supporting my podcast, but most importantly, the mission. If you would like to further support this podcast, there are a few ways you can do that. You can sign up for the newsletter. You'll receive the episodes straight to your inbox every time they drop. The link is in the show notes and the show description. You can subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel. And lastly, you can donate money. That link is also in the show notes and show description. If you would like to sponsor an episode or promote your business on this show, send me an email at Heidi@HeidiDelacruz.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the episode.
This sense of ease. I don't know how to describe
Mhm.
it, but it's something. It's being back into a space that's familiar.
Yes.
That's because it- you're with people that you're familiar with, so you tend to let your guard down. And there's ease in communicating with others, but you're also around people that are that you're deeply connected to. So for me, it was the joy of reconnecting with my family,
Yeah.
with the juxtaposition of some of the cultural differences, meaning that, the service level that I'd grown used to or accustomed to outside of the US differed to when I went back home. So it was just, pivoting, managing expectations as I as I,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to spend time with my family, but as I went into different social circles and different places, it was just sort of like me, I was contrasting and comparing my experiences. This is
Mm.
how it's done in the US and this is how it's done here.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's also always that sense of guilt. I don't know if you've experienced that or any of your guests have experienced that or spoken about that, but there's always this sense of guilt when you have to leave. You're leaving your support system, you're leaving your
Mm.
family, your friends that you've known from childhood. So there's
Yeah.
always that sense of guilt when you have to leave.
Yeah, definitely. Are you still in New York?
No, I'm
Oh,
actually in Orlando, Florida.
stop it. I'm in Deltona.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
I
goodness.
really am. Yep, Deltona. So for those who don't know, depending on where you go to Orlando, I'm either like 45 minutes away or like an hour away. But yeah. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So when did you move down
Orlando,
here?
Florida. I moved here, so there are many unique stories about my transition to the US. There were some professional relationships that existed prior to me moving here, and I was able to leverage, those relationships for job opportunities. Fortunate for me, that's not always the case
Nice.
for many
Yeah.
who are starting life
Hmm.
all over from scratch. So, fortunately for me, I had those relationships that existed prior. And I had an opportunity to move here for work. And my husband,
Nice.
his career profession allows him to be a digital nomad. And he truthfully, at some point, wanted to, you know, migrate down to Florida to get to escape the harsh winters up
Yep.
north.
Hmm.
Um, so when I had the opportunity to move to Orlando, we packed our bags and our belongings, and we moved here with
Awesome. So
with
how was it adapting? Because 'Cause I'm from Michigan, so I understand the whole winter thing. So how was it, like, adapting from, like, moving up north to down here? Because 'Cause Imma be honest, like, it took me a while. Like, I actually ended up moving back to Michigan
um,
after 6 months of living in Florida the first time I moved. Because I don't know, I just I couldn't, and so then eventually I moved back, and now I've been here since then, but, it's going from 4 seasons to just like you said, like, it's just hot all around in Florida, like, it was hard adapting for me, so I wanna know, like, how was that for you?
So that's a good question, and smile. Um, my husband, I think, had a more difficult time transitioning. So much so that we did contemplate moving back
Mm, mhm.
after being here for 3 years. In fact, every year that passed, we said, this is the year that we're going to go back to New York. Now, remember, he's from New York. He's born,
Mhm,
bred, lived there
mhm.
his entire life, didn't
Yep.
know anything about living in the South. And I think his first shock or culture shock was obviously the fact that, he didn't have access to things 24/7. I remember us going out to, I think it was Christmas Eve. We wanted to, you know, grab a last minute item. And I think we went to one of the stores and it was closed. And
Mhm.
he was just in complete shock. He said this would never happen in New York
Yeah.
because, of course, it's New York City.
Mhm.
Things are not the same in Orlando. And there are a lot of things, the heat, the humidity, took some getting used to the
Yes.
insanely hot summers, took some getting used to. So that and the fact that his entire network, professional network,
Mm, mhm.
was in New York. So he spent quite a bit of time going back and forth for the first few years that we were here until we decided that, we have a young son and he is in school, forming relationships. And,
Yeah.
we had to provide that stability for him as well. So
Mm.
we eventually made Orlando home.
Yeah, I tell people, I was like, they ask me, like, "What do I do in the summers?" And I'm like, "Nothing, I don't leave my house because it's so hot." It's too
Yes,
hot to
it
be
is.
outside, like, I just stay
It
home.
is.
Anything it has to be AC, like, if I'm gonna do something, like, it has to be indoors where there's AC because it is impossible to be outside in Florida in the summertime.
100% correct. I really reduce any outdoor activity during the
Mhm.
summer months. And I tell visitors, friends, and family that want to visit during the summer months because that's when they can. They want to visit the theme parks. I said,
Yes.
I'm happy to host you, but I will not
Yep.
be participating in
Yes.
any park activities.
Correct. That's like my time to go to the theme parks, it's like November to like March. If it's
Yeah.
not during those months, I am not going to no park. I
Yes.
may go to a water park, but that's a big maybe. Big
Mhm.
maybe. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so tell us about you're a little bit more about your work in HR. I know you mentioned a little bit in the beginning. Did you always know that you wanted to work in HR, or how did that come about?
I think for a long time, I knew that I wanted to be in human resources. In fact, when I remember being asked that question when I graduated with when I my undergrad, and I said I wanted a career in HR. At that time, I really didn't understand the full scope of the profession, but I had my entry into HR when I was living in the Cayman Islands. I started working for a family owned conglomerate, and I, got my intro into HR there. And I then moved on to a company that was an international company that was scaling and growing rapidly. And they were looking for someone in HR. At that time, I would describe my experience as very rudimentary, but I was told that, listen, we don't have an HR department. And if you are willing to build this from scratch, it's yours.
Wow.
I saw that as an opportunity. I took it and I ran with it. A lot of what I knew back then was self-taught. But when I moved to the US, having had that start, I decided that this is really where I want, what I want to do professionally.
Yeah.
And I quickly seized every opportunity to refine, to educate myself formally. I started with studying for the SHRM certification, a certified professional exam. In fact, I think in 2016, it was overly ambitious deadline.
Mm.
After getting here, trying to learn as much and absorb as much as I can, I signed up for the test. I went to the classes to study to prepare for that exam because I thought that, for me to really accelerate and grow here as quickly as I want to in the profession, I needed to do everything that was necessary to make sure that I was qualified and certified to do that.
Mm.
So I started my, journey here in HR as well, or continued rather my journey here in HR. But I always wanted to. I believe that within me, I feel that platform or that professional platform really allows me to fulfill my purpose. And, that's really to connect, to inspire, and to empower people. And that's how I describe my purpose best. And I'm able to fulfill that through my profession. So it continues to evolve. My journey in HR has continued to evolve. I've just recently graduated from Florida State with my Juris Masters in HR risk and compliance. And
Nice.
as a professional, I believe that the power skills, soft skills are important, but so are the technical competencies, especially knowing how to navigate the legal, landscape. Application of the law is very important as a professional. And, like I said, I looked for every opportunity. I explored every opportunity to make sure that I was not just another HR professional, but I was really someone that was well rounded. And, I was adding value wherever I went.
Nice. Love that. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that you are fulfilling your purpose and you are driven and helping others. And yeah, I love that because there's nothing like, being able to live out your purpose. So
No,
I love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing your journey, for being willing, and just for the work that you're doing. So, last two final questions is where can people connect with you if they want to, connect and yeah, and they want to follow you?
Sure, absolutely. I am on LinkedIn, Rebecca Vieira Cox. That is my handle on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can also send me an email to info@nbisinternational.com. Like I said, we're currently rebranding, but that's the email address that will be used and or you can use to get in contact with me.
Awesome. I'll definitely include that in the show notes and show description. And the last question to wrap up this amazing conversation is what does the American dream mean to you?
That's a great question. Like I alluded to earlier, for me, it definitely was never about the white picket fence. Even though that's how it's often romanticized by many immigrants chasing the American dream. For me, it was simply a canvas that was part of my journey, that
Mm.
that led me here. It was an opportunity to pivot. Um, but what I really, how I would describe that now, it's a space where it allows for freedom, that sovereignty to rediscover yourself, to live with intention, to live with purpose, and I would say it's a space where true grit and resilience meets possibility, right?
Mhm.
If you're coming here from a different country, it, yeah, that in itself what I tell immigrants is it's an exciting opportunity,
Mhm.
but the reality sometimes there's such a disconnect. But what I would say is that your ability to adapt and integrate truly becomes transformative. So for me, it's really that the freedom to rediscover yourself, to redefine yourself, and to achieve anything that you aspire to.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I love that. Oh my goodness. Thank you once again for sharing your story. And again, I'll include your the links to your LinkedIn and to your email in the show notes and show description. And just thank you again for being willing to share.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Heidi.
Thank you for listening to Mami Podcast.